Let's move on now. Viewers, new details have emerged in the Air India Phuket-Delhi flight incident. Let's break those. An aviation safety expert's analysis has revealed the altitude drop was far greater than earlier reported. The aircraft first climbed nearly 400 feet from 36,000 feet to 36,400 feet before descending to 35,725 feet, a total altitude swing of 677 feet, not just the 300 feet that's initially stated. The analysis also found the change occurred in two separate movements, with the aircraft holding steady for about 4 seconds in between rather than in one continuous motion. Rumi is joining us with the details on this from the newsroom.
Kriti, well, I have a detailed table that documents the rapid altitude excursion, which was of course the sudden climb followed by a descent experienced by the aircraft, the Air India aircraft, of course, on the 4th of August 2026. Let's break it down for our viewers. At UTC 4 hours 2 minutes and 33 seconds, the pressure altitude was 36,001 feet. There was zero deviation, and this was a level phase, right? But however, just a few seconds later, at 4 hours 2 minutes 49 seconds, which would be around 16 seconds later, the phase was onset. So there was a deviation in the phase of the aircraft. However, the altitude had not changed. At 3 seconds later, at 4 hours 2 minutes and 52 seconds, it was at 36,175 feet with a deviation of 174 feet, and pulse 1 was complete. At 4 hours 3 minutes and 3 seconds, you will see that the altitude was 36,401 feet. The deviation was 400 feet, and it was at its peak. And then you'll take a look at the board. Another board right there is 4 hours 3 minutes 15 seconds, when the altitude was 35,725 feet. So after a rapid ascent, when the aircraft reached up 400 feet, it went down. There was a trough that it saw within, and it all happened within seconds. In fact, if you look at the difference would be 47 seconds between these two, the peak and the trough that were crossed. And it went down 276 feet within these 47 seconds. So this is, of course, a major incident. It was not just turbulence that was causing it. We're now also finding out that this drop in altitude was also because the pilot was reportedly had consumed marijuana, which is why he was unstable and was unable to handle the aircraft as needed. Yes, Kriti.
Rumi, thank you for providing us these details. Let's now also go across. I'm joined in by Captain C.S. Randhawa, who is the president of the FIP. Captain Randhawa, thank you very much for joining us. Several reports are coming in where, initially it was stated that the pilot was under the influence of drugs, and then it was said that he was under influence of some sleeping medication. We're also picking up that he had even slept during the course of the flight. But do you think it's more than just the pilot? Because the plane had entered a patch of rough weather. The weather radar likely didn't accurately depict how violent it would be. And it's unusual when you are surrounded by weather from all sides. You go through the path of least resistance. The hydraulic alerts, etc., are they likely a cause of entering the weather and probably a transient loss of pressure?
Good afternoon. I'd like to answer you this question in 3-4 parts.
Yes.
First part is that the drug test, which is the psychoactive substance test, which was carried out, which is non-negative in the first case, and when it was repeated for a confirmatory test, it tests positive for marijuana.
Hmm.
That is first part. The second part is the aircraft encountered not turbulence, because initially the airline said minor technical problem, but later on it said about turbulence. There was no turbulence at all. This incident, serious incident, took place because there have been some technical issues on the aircraft,
Yeah.
which you rightly said, there is a hydraulic problem, and also apparently the aircraft pitched up when the hydraulic pressure went off. The aircraft pitched up. Now, when it pitched up, the pilot presumed that the speed was washing off. He tried to push the stick forward. That action you take normally for stall recovery. Now, third part is the pilot in command was not on the controls. He was not on his seat. He was standing or sitting down, I don't know. And the first officer did the recovery. The third point, that how is it related? Now, here we are debating that, okay, the investigations will check all these cases, right? But the point is that the pilot should not have undertaken the flight if he was under any self-medication. But now it is the test, though we don't have the test reports, the media is reporting that he's tested positive for marijuana. Now, the drug stays in a human being's body. It could be from 10 days up to 3 months. And in some cases, it stays in the hair follicles even for a much longer time. That is why when the confirmatory test was done, they had taken the hair follicle, not urine sample. That was in the first case. So the point is that we being the Federation of Indian Pilots and as a pilot body, we are very, very sorry to hear that the pilot has entered into a cockpit under the influence of drugs, could be medicinal.
Captain Randhawa, I just want to seek a little bit of clarification here. Is there any confirmation that the pilot entered the cockpit when he was not well within his senses? Because like you're talking about, the drug test for marijuana could test positive even if you've had the drug, let's say, a week prior or a month prior, it stays. So how is it confirmed that the pilot while flying was or was not under influence?
See, now that question comes up is of impairment. Now, like, I'll give you an example, like supposing a person is driving. So today a person would have taken 2 drinks and he thinks he can drive safely and he has driven safely. It is not impaired his vision. Next day he drives, he is under influence of same 2 drinks and he meets with an accident. See, whenever a human body is under the influence of alcohol or drugs, it will affect the performance of the person. Be very clear. Now, since the person was not on the controls, that is why you have to delink 2 things. One is the dope test and the second is the technical problem. First of all, if he had a problem, he should not have undertaken the flight and reported sick at Phuket, if it was due to medicines. But if it was due to drugs, he could have had marijuana maybe a day prior to the flight. He could have had 7-8 days before. So no one knows. But in the medical evaluation and all that, in investigations, it will come, everything will come out because AIB is conducting this investigation with the help of French organization BEA and the Airbus industry.
final question, Captain Randhawa, before I let you go. How much how much can you confidently trust AAIB's probe into the matter? We still don't have any conclusion from the plane crash AI 171.
I'm also upset on that AI 171 crash. Because this also point we have been taking up with the government of India so many times that you do not have the right amount of right people in the AIB who are subject matter experts, and plus you have got only just 5 people taking into every investigation in the country, where it is exponentially, the air traffic, everything has number of aircraft, everything has increased exponentially, and you got 5 people. So it's a big joke.
Yeah. Right, Captain Randhawa, for now, thank you very much for speaking to us on this. Viewers, let's get some more breaking updates on the Air India turbulence incident. Now, Air India has announced that it will begin a full screening of all its pilots today for prohibited substances and medications. The move comes amid heightened scrutiny of flight safety protocols across the airline. Atul is joining us. Atul, do talk to us about this big step, the latest one being taken by Air India.
Quite a big step from Air India, and this is the breaking news that we are getting right now, that Air India has mandated, all the pilots would be going through a mandatory psychoactive substance test, and this would be done, in fact, frequently is what we are learning about, because if you see right now, under DGCA rules, this sort of test for psychoactive substances is something which is done randomly, and it is not something which is done as regularly. In fact, pre-flying and post-flying, like the breath analyzer test that is often done. That is something which was a sort of a loophole that was being considered and was pointed out after the whole fiasco that has emerged. Now what we're learning that Air India has in fact taken a step regarding this. They're going to address this problem, and they have mandated all the pilots of the Air India would be going through a mandatory psychoactive substance test or any sort of prohibitive medication that any of the pilot might be taking. Remember, this step comes after the captain of the Air India Phuket-Delhi flight. He admitted in the front of AIB officials, investigative officials, that he was sleep deprived for about a week, and then he was under medications for sleep that was prescribed by his doctor. Now that is something which came after he tested positive for marijuana, because initially his urine test was done right immediately after the incident, after the flight, that came out positive. Then a confirmatory test was done subsequently, that too came out positive, and it suggested that he was under the influence of marijuana. Post this, there were a lot of questions being asked, and now Air India has taken this step would be mandatorily testing all the pilots of the airline regarding this. Now, this is quite crucial also, given the fact that this particular pilot said that he was taking this medication for sleep. Now,
yes, Atul, thank you for giving us the details there. Viewers, a very quick break now, but stay tuned to NewsX.